The sky was pitch black. The rain was pouring down. A boy on a bicycle slipped and stopped. Lightning flashed. A man lay face down in a ditch, gasping for breath. He lay motionless. The boy dropped his bicycle. He ran to the man.
Sir, can you hear me?
The man's eyes blinked. Only a whisper came.
Please save me.
No cars, no houses, no lights within miles. The boy took off his jacket and placed it under the man's head.
I'll go find someone to help. Hold on tight.
The boy got back on his bicycle. 12 miles to the nearest gas station. No phone, no light. Just a child cycling through the storm for a stranger. He didn't know who was in the ditch, but that man was about to change his life forever. But to understand why that night mattered, you need to understand what Theo Davis woke up to every single morning. Perrin Street, a small, quiet road on the edge of Grady, Georgia. The kind of town that doesn't show up on GPS unless you type the full zip code. Theo lived in a shotgun house with peeling paint and a screen door that never latched right. The roof had patches on top of patches. The porch had 2 folding chairs and a coffee can where his grandmother collected rainwater for her plants. He didn't have a bedroom. He slept on a pull-out couch in the living room, behind a curtain his grandmother hung from a tension rod. That was his wall. That was his privacy. Every morning, same routine. He woke before sunrise, folded his blanket with military corners. Nana taught him that. Poured cereal into a bowl, store brand, the box almost empty. Ate half, left the other half for her. His shoes were 2 sizes too big. Hand-me-downs from a church donation bin. He stuffed newspaper in the toes so they wouldn't slip. And he never complained. Not once. His grandmother, Nana Eloise, had been raising him since he was 3. His mother passed from complications after surgery. His father left before Theo was born. So it was just the 2 of them. Nana Eloise worked part-time sorting donations at the Salvation Army. But lately, her knees would swell by noon. Arthritis, diabetes. She'd been cutting hours because her body wouldn't let her stand that long anymore. But every morning, she ironed Theo's one good shirt, hummed gospel songs while she pressed the collar flat. And she told him the same thing every single day. You carry yourself like you matter, Theo, because you do. She never complained either, and Theo never asked her to explain the past due envelopes she hid in the bread box. But he knew. He counted them when she was asleep. There were 6. Theo's most prized possession was his bicycle, not because it was nice. It was the opposite of nice. He'd built it himself from parts he found at the junkyard. Mismatched wheels, duct tape wrapped around the handlebars, a headlight that worked when it felt like it. But that bike was his freedom, his paycheck, his everything. Every day after school, Theo rode to Brenda's diner out on the county road. Brenda Holloway, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who said exactly what she meant and meant exactly what she said, paid him $20 cash to wash dishes, bus tables, and mop floors. 4 to 8, Monday through Friday. On weekends, he collected aluminum cans along Route 112, the long, flat highway that connected Grady to the interstate. He crushed them into garbage bags strapped to his bike frame and hauled them to the recycling center. Pennies per pound. But pennies add up when you're patient. And every single day, riding that road, the same thing happened. Enormous freight trucks, white with gold lettering, thundered past him, shaking the ground, kicking up dust. Theo never looked at the logo, never noticed the letters WCF painted on the side. They were just trucks. Here's the thing about Theo. He was quiet, didn't talk much, but his hands never stopped. In a beaten-up composition notebook, he drew. Not doodles, real drawings. Buildings, bridges, machines, gears interlocking with gears, cross-sections of engines he'd never touched. He wanted to be an engineer. His school counselor told him about a STEM summer camp upstate. Robotics, coding, structural design. The kind of place that turns dreamers into builders. Cost $1,500. Theo had been saving for 4 months. Dishes, cans, every dollar tucked into an envelope under his mattress. Total so far, $312. Most people would look at that gap, $312 to $1,500, and see impossible. Theo looked at it and saw, not yet. After his shift at Brenda's, Theo would ride home in the fading light, past the boarded-up textile mill, past the Dollar General, past the empty lot where kids played basketball on a hoop with no net. He'd pull up to Perrin Street, park his bike against the porch rail. Nana would be sitting in her folding chair, 2 glasses of sweet tea already poured. They'd sit together, watch the sky turn orange, listen to the freight trucks rumble in the distance. "How was work, baby?" "Good, Nana. You eat?" "Yes, ma'am," she'd nod. He'd sip his tea, and for a few minutes, everything was okay. Theo Davis didn't have much, but he had his grandmother, his bike, and the kind of stubborn hope that doesn't know when to quit. And on the night of September 14th, that hope was about to be tested in a way he never could have imagined. What Theo found on Route 112 that night should have made him turn around. Any grown adult would have. But Theo was 13, and 13-year-olds don't always do the reasonable thing. It was a Thursday night, late, much later than usual. A pipe had burst under the kitchen sink at Brenda's, water everywhere. Theo stayed to help mop up the flood, bucket after bucket, until the floor was dry. Brenda handed him an extra $10 and a styrofoam box of leftover meatloaf. "For your Nana." "Thank you, Miss Brenda." She looked at the clock. 9:45. "Theo, it's late. Storm's coming. Just wait it out here." He shook his head. "Nana worries." Brenda sighed. She knew better than to argue with this kid. Theo zipped up his hoodie, strapped the meatloaf container to his bike rack, and pushed through the door into the dark. The sky looked wrong, swollen, bruise-colored. Thunder rolled somewhere in the distance. The air tasted like wet iron. Within 10 minutes, the rain came. Not drizzle, not a sprinkle, the kind of rain that falls sideways, the kind that hurts. Theo's headlight flickered twice, then died. Now he was riding blind, no visibility, just the white line on the edge of the road and the occasional flash of lightning showing him the way. His hoodie was soaked through in seconds. His oversized shoes slipped on the pedals. The meatloaf container flew off the back rack and tumbled into the dark behind him. He didn't stop for it. 6 more miles to Perrin Street. Just keep the wheel straight. Just keep pedaling. The road was empty. No headlights in either direction. No houses for 2 miles. Just pine trees, drainage ditches, and the sound of rain hitting asphalt like gravel. Then lightning flashed, and Theo saw something, off the right shoulder. A dark shape. A car. A black sedan, nosed into the drainage ditch at a steep angle. Driver's door hanging open. Dome light glowing, barely. He squeezed his brakes, stood over his bike, rain hammering his face. He almost kept going. Almost. Then he saw the shoe. A man's dress shoe, expensive looking, polished, sticking out from behind the rear bumper, attached to a leg, attached to a body. Theo dropped his bike on the gravel, ran to the man. A white male, maybe early 60s, dark suit, drenched, face down in the gravel shoulder, one arm pinned under his body, skin pale, lips turning gray. Theo knelt beside him, put a hand on his shoulder. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" The man didn't move. Theo shook him harder. "Sir, please, wake up!" The man's eyes cracked open, barely, unfocused. His breathing was shallow and wrong, short, rattling gasps, like every breath cost him something. He tried to speak. The words came out broken, slurred. "Can't. My chest. Can't breathe." His hand reached up and gripped Theo's wrist. Not panicked, not wild, firm, controlled. The kind of grip that belonged to someone used to being in charge, even now, even flat on his back in a ditch. Theo noticed something in the man's breast pocket, a white handkerchief, neatly folded, embroidered with 2 letters in gold thread, G.W. He pulled it out and wiped the rain from the man's face, gently, the way Nana wiped his face when he had a fever. "Sir, I don't have a phone. I can't call anybody." The man's eyes searched Theo's face, desperate, fading. "Please." Theo looked up, looked both ways down Route 112. Nothing. No headlights, no houses. Nothing but darkness and rain in every direction. The nearest place with a phone was the Chevron station at the interstate junction. North, roughly 12 miles. He could ride back to Brenda's, about 6 miles south, but she closed at 10. She'd be gone by now. 12 miles north, in a thunderstorm, on a bike with no light. He looked down at the man, the gray lips, the shallow breathing, the hand still gripping his wrist. This man was dying, right here, right now. Theo made his decision. He dragged the man, slowly, carefully, to a flatter patch of ground beside the car, away from the ditch water. The man groaned. Theo whispered, I'm sorry, I know." He pulled off his hoodie, his only layer, and folded it under the man's head. "Sir, listen to me. I'm going to get help. You hear me? I'm coming back. Just don't close your eyes." The man's grip loosened on Theo's wrist. His fingers slid away. Theo stood up, rain on bare arms, shivering. He picked up his bike, pointed it north, and he started pedaling. But what Theo didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that the man he'd just promised to save was worth more than every house in his zip code combined. What happened over the next 2 hours is something paramedics later said they'd never seen. A kid, on a bicycle, outrunning a storm to save a stranger's life. Theo pedaled, rain like needles, wind pushing him sideways, no streetlights, no visibility, just the white line on the road and the burn in his legs. He talked to himself to stay focused, counted pedal strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. His thighs cramped. His lungs felt like someone had stuffed them with cotton. His bare arms, no hoodie, he gave it away, were numb from the cold. A logging truck blasted past him out of nowhere, horns screaming, spray blinding him. The wind knocked him sideways, and his front wheel wobbled hard. He almost went down. He caught the handlebars, steadied, kept going. 1, 2, 3, 4. His mind kept going back to the man, those gray lips, those rattling breaths, that grip on his wrist. What if he's already dead? What if I'm doing this for nothing? He pushed the thought away, pedaled harder. The rain didn't care about a 13-year-old boy. The road didn't care. The dark didn't care. But Theo kept going anyway, mile after mile, alone, invisible. A kid that nobody on earth knew was out here right now, fighting to keep a stranger alive. Then, mile 8, his chain slipped. The pedals spun free. The bike lurched. He skidded to a stop on the gravel shoulder, almost going over the handlebars. He jumped off, knelt down in the mud, tried to loop the chain back onto the gear with his fingers, but his hands were shaking so bad he couldn't grip it. He tried again, slipped, scraped his knuckles on the chain ring. Again, slipped. He sat back on the wet gravel, rain pouring down his face. And for 30 seconds, just 30 seconds, he broke. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears mixing with rain, jaw clenched, shoulders shaking. A 13-year-old kid, sitting on the side of a highway in the middle of nowhere, wondering if any of this even mattered. Then he heard her voice, not out loud, in his head, clear as daylight. "You carry yourself like you matter, Theo, because you do." He wiped his face with the back of his hand, grabbed the chain, forced it back on. It caught. He stood up, got back on the bike, and he kept going. The rain eased, just barely. Just enough that he could see the road reflectors again. A small mercy. The only one he'd get tonight. Mile 9. Mile 10. Mile 11. His legs had stopped hurting. Not because the pain went away, because his body had gone past pain into something else, something mechanical, something that just moved because it had to. Then he saw it. A glow, faint, yellowish, fluorescent. The Chevron station at the interstate junction. Sitting there in the darkness like a lighthouse. Theo crashed through the front door, soaking wet, shaking, mud on his shoes, his arms, his face, gasping so hard he could barely form words. The cashier, a young woman behind the counter, stared at him. Her eyes went wide. "There's a man," Theo choked out. "Route 112. Car accident. He's dying. Please call 911. She didn't move. 1 second. 2 seconds. She looked at this drenched kid, a black boy, wild-eyed, shaking, barefoot in one shoe because the other one fell off somewhere around mile 6, and she hesitated. "Please," Theo's voice cracked. "He's not breathing right. Please." She picked up the phone. Theo leaned against the counter. His legs buckled. He grabbed the edge to keep himself standing. His whole body was trembling, not from cold anymore, from everything. The cashier spoke to dispatch. "Ambulance, Route 112, approximately 6 miles south, car in a ditch, male, unresponsive." She hung up, looked at Theo. "They're sending someone, and a deputy." Theo nodded, grabbed a handful of napkins from the dispenser, wiped his face. His hands were still shaking. He didn't sit down. He didn't wait. He walked back outside and got on his bike. "Kid, wait! Where are you going?" "I have to show them where he is. There's no landmarks, just trees." He rode south, back into the dark, back into the rain, back toward the man. The ambulance passed him 4 miles later, sirens cutting through the storm, red and white lights flashing across the pine trees. Theo waved his arms. They slowed. He screamed the location through the rain. They accelerated. A minute later, Deputy Tillman's cruiser pulled alongside him, window down. "Son, get in the car, now." Theo threw his bike in the trunk, climbed in the passenger seat, soaking the upholstery, shaking. They arrived at the scene. The paramedics were already on the ground working on the man. Oxygen mask, IV line, one of them pressing on his chest, hard, rhythmic, desperate. Theo stood in the rain and watched. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. His whole body had gone still. 15 seconds of compressions, 20, 30. Then the man coughed. His chest rose. His hand twitched. He gasped. A real breath. A full breath. The paramedic looked up, nodded to his partner. "We got him. Let's move." They loaded him into the ambulance. Doors closed. Sirens wailed. The lights disappeared down Route 112. Deputy Tillman drove Theo to Grady County Memorial. Didn't say much. Just handed him a shock blanket from the back seat and turned the heat up. At the ER, they wheeled the man straight through the double doors. Dr. Elaine Crawford took over. A nurse brought Theo a cup of hot chocolate from the vending machine. He held it with both hands. Didn't drink, just held it. The warmth felt foreign, like his body had forgotten what it was. A nurse came over, clipboard in hand. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Theo. Theo Davis." "Are you related to the patient?" No, ma'am. I just found him. She looked at him. Really looked. At the mud on his face, the bare arms, the one missing shoe, the shock blanket around his shoulders. This kid who biked through a hurricane for a man he'd never met. Something shifted in her expression. Something like respect. 40 minutes later, Dr. Crawford came through the double doors. She pulled off her gloves, looked at Theo. He had a massive cardiac event. Heart attack while driving. That's what caused the crash. Another 20 minutes without help, and he would not have survived. No question. She paused. You saved his life, son. Theo didn't know what to do with that sentence. He looked down at the hot chocolate in his hands. I'm just glad he's okay. But the night wasn't over, and the stranger Theo saved, he was about to wake up, and the first thing he'd ask for was the boy with the bicycle. Deputy Tillman had called Nana Eloise from the hospital. She arrived 20 minutes later in a neighbor's car, housecoat, slippers, hands trembling, eyes scanning the waiting room like she was looking for a body. Then she saw him. Theo, sitting in a plastic chair, shock blanket around his shoulders, hot chocolate untouched, mud still on his face, one shoe missing. She didn't say a word. She just walked over, grabbed him, and held on. Theo's chin dropped onto her shoulder. His arms came up around her back, and for a long time, neither of them moved. The nurses pretended not to watch, but they watched. Finally, Nana pulled back, put both hands on his face, looked him dead in the eyes. Theodore Davis, don't you ever scare me like that again. Then softer, almost a whisper. I'm so proud of you, I could burst. And that's when Theo cried. Not the silent tears on the roadside, not the clenched jaw, swallow it down kind. Real crying. The kind a 13-year-old earns after a night like that. Nana held him through it, rocked him like he was 3 years old again. Didn't care who was watching. 2 hours later, a nurse walked into the waiting room. The patient is awake. He's asking for the boy who found him. Theo looked at Nana. She nodded. He followed the nurse down the hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing, his bare feet cold on the linoleum. The man was propped up in bed, IV lines in his arm, oxygen tube under his nose. His face had color again, not gray anymore. His eyes were clear, alert, sharp. The first thing the man did was extend his hand. Theo took it, that grip again, firm, controlled, not the grip of a sick man, the grip of someone who shook hands like it meant something. They tell me you rode a bicycle through that storm to get me help. Yes, sir. How old are you, son? 13. The man shook his head slowly. Let that sink in. What's your name? Theo. Theo Davis. Theo. He said the name like he was filing it away somewhere permanent. My name is Garrett, and I owe you my life. That's not an exaggeration. You understand that? Theo nodded. He didn't know what else to do. So I need to ask you, how can I repay you? Theo shook his head. You don't owe me anything, sir. I'm just glad you're okay. Garrett studied him. A long look. The kind of look that takes inventory of a person. Not what they're wearing, not what they look like, but what they're made of. 6 seconds, maybe less. Then Garrett turned to the nurse. Can I get my personal effects? She brought a plastic bag. Garrett reached in and pulled out the handkerchief, the white one, still damp, with the gold initials, G.W. He folded it carefully, held it out to Theo. Keep this. Theo hesitated. Sir, that's yours. It's yours now. Consider it a promise. Theo took it, turned it over in his hands, ran his thumb across the embroidered letters, G.W. He didn't know what they stood for, didn't ask. "Thank you, sir." Garrett nodded. "Go home, Theo. Get some sleep. You earned it." Nana took him home. He was asleep before his head hit the pull-out couch. Nana sat in the kitchen, alone, looking at the bread box stuffed with overdue bills. Then at the curtain behind which her grandson was sleeping. She folded her hands and whispered a prayer, thanked God for keeping him safe, asked him to watch over this boy, because the world needed whatever he was made of. On Theo's nightstand, the handkerchief sat folded. The gold letters GW caught the streetlight through the window. Theo went to sleep thinking the story was over. He'd helped a man. The man lived. That was enough. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that right now, in that hospital room, Garrett was making a phone call, and the person on the other end was about to send a helicopter. Over the next 48 hours, strange things started happening in Grady, and every single one of them led back to that man in the hospital bed. The next morning, Theo rode his bike to school, like always. Same route, same potholes, same freight trucks rumbling past. But when he passed Grady County Memorial, something was different. 3 black SUVs in the parking lot, tinted windows, a man in a dark suit standing at the entrance, earpiece, arms folded, sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. Theo slowed down, stared. On the helipad behind the building, a helicopter. Sleek, private, white with gold trim. White and gold. Same colors as the freight trucks. Theo looked at it for a moment, then kept writing. Not his business. But something about it stayed with him. Something he couldn't name. That afternoon, he walked into Brenda's diner for his shift. Brenda was on the phone in the back, speaking low, serious. She hung up the second she saw him. "Theo, hey baby, sit down." That was weird. Brenda never told him to sit down. Brenda told him to grab an apron and get to work. She brought him a plate, not leftovers scraped into a styrofoam box, a real plate. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, a roll with butter. "Miss Brenda, I can eat after my shift." "Sit. Eat." He sat. He ate. She watched him for a moment. Then, carefully, like she was choosing every word. "Theo, honey, do you know who that man was? The one you helped?" Theo looked up. "He said his name was Garrett." Brenda opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then she just said, "You're a good kid, Theo." She turned back to the grill. Her hands were shaking. That evening, a news van parked on Perrin Street. A reporter knocked on Nana Eloise's door. Young woman, microphone in hand, cameraman behind her. "Mrs. Davis? We're doing a story on the boy who saved Garrett Whitfield. Could we speak with your grandson?" Nana Eloise had never heard the full name before. She smiled politely and closed the door. But that night, after Theo fell asleep, she sat at the kitchen table with her old tablet. Screen cracked, Wi-Fi slow. She typed 2 words into the search bar. Garrett Whitfield. Her eyes went wide. Her hand went to her mouth. The screen showed his face. The same man, the same sharp eyes, under a headline about one of the largest privately held logistics companies in the Southeast. She looked across the room, at the handkerchief on Theo's nightstand. G.W. Garrett Whitfield. She sat down slowly, didn't move for a long time. She didn't tell Theo, not yet, because she didn't have the words. But it didn't matter, because the next morning, a car was going to pull up to their house on Perrin Street, and the person inside was going to make an offer that would change everything. Garrett Whitfield didn't just survive that night. He made a decision in that hospital bed, a decision that even his own wife tried to talk him out of. But Garrett was the kind of man who, once he decided something, didn't look back. Before we get to that decision, you need to know who Garrett Whitfield really is. Those freight trucks, the white ones with gold lettering that rumble past Theo's house every single day, the ones with WCF painted on the side, the ones Theo never bothered to look at, they belong to the man he saved, Garrett Whitfield, founder and CEO of Whitfield Consolidated Freight, a logistics empire spanning 38 states. Fleet of over 3,000 trucks. Revenue north of $2 billion. The man lying face down in a ditch on Route 112. The man, a 13-year-old boy covered with his only hoodie, was one of the wealthiest men in the American Southeast. But Garrett didn't grow up wealthy. He grew up broke. Son of a long-haul trucker from rural Alabama. Free lunch at school. Holes in his shoes. A mother who held everything together alone. He started WCF with one truck, a beat-up Freightliner bought with a $3,000 loan from his uncle. He drove it himself for 2 years, sleeping in the cab, eating gas station food. 35 years later, that one truck became 3,000. So when Garrett looked at Theo, a kid with nothing, saving pennies in an envelope, he didn't see charity. He saw a mirror. The night of the accident, Garrett was driving alone. Something he almost never did. But that day was his mother's birthday. She'd passed 3 years ago. Every September 14th, he drove to the cemetery in Macon to sit by her grave and talk to her. The heart attack hit on Route 112, crushing pressure in his chest, vision blurred, hands went numb. He pulled over before everything went dark. His phone flew off the seat on impact and slid under the dashboard. Unreachable. He lay in the rain, fading, feeling his heartbeat stutter and skip, knowing, with calm clarity, that he was going to die on a road nobody drives at night. Then footsteps, splashing through gravel. "Sir, can you hear me?" A soaking wet kid on a bicycle. And Garrett felt that boy's hand on his shoulder, steady and sure. That's what Garrett told Caroline from his hospital bed. "That boy is what Mama sent me." Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Perrin Street. A polished black town car rolled down the block. Every neighbor watched from their porches. A car like that had never been on Perrin Street. The door opened. Caroline Whitfield stepped out. Early 60s, elegant. But her eyes were red and swollen. She carried a gift bag and a cream-colored envelope. She knocked. Nana Eloise opened the door. She already knew. Her face said everything. "Mrs. Davis, I'm Caroline Whitfield. My husband is the man your grandson saved. May I come in?" Nana stepped aside. Caroline walked into the living room, saw the pull-out couch, the curtain on the tension rod, the ceiling stain. She took it all in without a word. Theo was at the kitchen table, bowl of cereal. He looked up. Caroline sat across from him, took both of his hands. "Theo, my husband hasn't stopped talking about you. He told me, his exact words, 'That boy has more character in his little finger than most executives I've met in 35 years.'" Theo didn't say anything. He didn't know what to say. Caroline opened the envelope. A handwritten letter on heavy cream paper. Corporate letterhead. Gold monogram at the top. G.W. Same as the handkerchief. Garrett had established a full educational trust in Theo's name. School, college, graduate school. Every dollar. No ceiling. No conditions. Nana Eloise's hand went to her chest. But that wasn't the twist. Garrett was creating something new. Something that didn't exist before that night. The WCF Youth Engineering Apprenticeship. Built for one person. Built because of one person. Because at the hospital, while Theo was sleeping in the waiting room, his backpack had fallen open. His composition notebook slid out onto the floor. Garrett asked the nurse to hand it to him. He opened it. The bridges, the machines, the gears. Page after page of precise, self-taught draftsmanship from a kid who'd never had a single lesson. Garrett closed the notebook and told Caroline, "That notebook told me everything I needed to know." Caroline set the letter down. "There's one more thing." She reached into the gift bag. A brand new bicycle helmet, white with gold trim, and a handwritten note tucked inside. "For the next ride, but maybe let's make it a shorter one. G.W." Nana Eloise was crying, not hiding it, tears running down her face, both hands gripping the kitchen table. Theo stared at the letter, at the helmet, at the initials he'd seen before, on a handkerchief, on a truck, and now on a future he never dared to dream. He looked up at Caroline. "Ma'am, I didn't help him because of who he is. I didn't know who he was. I helped him because he needed help." Caroline smiled, the kind of smile that comes with fresh tears. "That's exactly why my husband chose you." Most people would have written a check and moved on. But Garrett Whitfield didn't become who he was by doing what most people do. 2 weeks after that night, Garrett came back to Grady. Not as assistant, not as lawyers, not a representative. Garrett himself. Walking with a cane now. Doctors said 6 weeks minimum before he could ditch it. But walking. He didn't announce he was coming. He just showed up. He drove through town slowly, windows down, taking it in. The boarded-up textile mill. The cracked roads with potholes deep enough to lose a shoe in. The elementary school with a temporary tarp over the gymnasium roof. Temporary for 3 years. The Dollar General that was the only store left on Main Street. He'd seen towns like this before. He grew up in one. He knew what it looked like when a place was dying. And Grady was dying. His first stop? Brenda's Diner. He walked in, sat at the counter, and ordered coffee and the meatloaf. Brenda nearly dropped the pot.
Mr. Whitfield, can I get to a booth? Let me clear a booth.
Counter's fine. And it's Garrett. He ate slowly, didn't rush. Asked Brenda about the town, about the people, about what happened when the textile mill closed. Brenda told him everything. The jobs that left, the families that followed, the kids who dropped out because there was nothing to stay for, the businesses that shut down one by one until all that was left was her diner and the Dollar General. Used to be a good town, she said. Good people. Still are. Just forgotten. Garrett listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't take notes. But Brenda could see it in his eyes. The same sharp look Theo described at the hospital. The look of a man calculating. When he finished the meatloaf, he set down his fork. "Brenda, this is the best meatloaf I've had in 30 years, and I'm not just saying that." Brenda laughed. First real laugh in a while. "You're full of it. I'm dead serious, and I want to talk to you about something. But not today. Today, I just needed to see this place." He left a $100 tip on a $6 meal. Brenda stared at it until the door closed behind him. 1 week later, Garrett called a town meeting at the Grady Community Center. Word spread fast. By 6 p.m., the parking lot was full. By 6:30, it was standing room only. Farmers, teachers, parents, store owners, kids, everyone had heard the story. The boy, the bicycle, the billionaire in the ditch. And now the billionaire was here, in their community center, about to speak. Garrett stood at the front. No podium, no projector, no suit either. Just a pressed shirt, sleeves rolled up, leaning on his cane. He looked out at the room, took his time. Then he spoke. "I'm alive because of this town. Because a boy from this town did something most grown men wouldn't do. So I'm not here to give a speech. I'm here to tell you 3 things." The room went silent. First, Whitfield Consolidated Freight is building a regional distribution hub right here in Grady, 50 acres east of town, 250 full-time jobs, starting wages above the county median, benefits from day one. Murmurs, gasps. A woman in the third row put her hand over her mouth. Second, I'm establishing the Theo Davis Community Scholarship Fund, annual, funded by WCF and personally by me. Not based on grades, not based on test scores, based on character. One question. Did this person show up for someone who needed them? Silence. People looking at each other. Third, he turned and looked at Brenda, standing in the back with her arms crossed and her eyes already wet. Brenda Holloway, I'm investing in your diner. Not buying it, investing. You're getting a real kitchen, a bigger space, and a catering contract to feed my distribution center 5 days a week. You're getting a business partner, not a boss. Brenda's arms dropped. Her hand went to her mouth. She shook her head slowly, not no, just disbelief. The room erupted. Applause, shouting, someone whistled. Coach Reeves was on his feet, clapping hard. The woman in the third row was crying. The man next to her was crying too. Nana Eloise sat in the middle of the room, squeezing Theo's hand so hard his fingers went white. Theo was in the back row, quiet, overwhelmed. He was 13. He didn't fully understand the scope of what just happened. But he understood this. The man he saved was saving his town back. After the meeting, the crowd spilled outside, people shaking Garrett's hand, hugging each other, standing in the parking lot talking like the future had just shown up unannounced. Garrett found Theo sitting on the community center steps, alone, knees pulled up, staring at the sky. Garrett sat next to him. Slowly, the cane made everything slow. Neither spoke for a moment. Then Garrett, I started with one truck, Theo. That's it. One truck and one person who believed in me. Your grandmother believes in you. Now I do too. Theo was quiet. Then, I still have your handkerchief. Garrett laughed, a real laugh. Keep it. Put it in that notebook of yours. Someday you'll frame it. They shook hands. That same firm grip. But different this time. Not a dying man and a scared boy. Two people, connected by the worst night of their lives. And the best. That night, Theo and Nana sat on the porch. Folding chairs, sweet tea, freight trucks rumbling in the distance. Nana was quiet for a long time. Then, Theo, I want you to remember something. That man didn't give you anything you didn't earn. You earned it. On that road, in that rain, with those legs. Nobody handed you that. Theo nodded. And when you grow up and you're somebody, because you will be, you find the kid on the bicycle, and you be the Garrett. Theo looked up at the sky, and for the first time, the sky above Parent Street didn't feel like a ceiling. It felt like a door. What happened next wasn't just about one boy or one billionaire. It was about what happens when a single act of kindness creates a chain reaction that nobody can stop. And over the next year, Grady, the town people forgot, became a town nobody could ignore. It started with the dirt, 50 acres east of town. Bulldozers showed up on a Monday morning. By Friday, the land was flat. Steel beams arrived the following week on flatbed trucks, white with gold lettering. WCF trucks. The same ones that used to just pass through. Now they were stopping. The construction alone changed things. Local contractors got the first calls. Electricians, welders, concrete crews. Paychecks started flowing into Grady for the first time in years. The hardware store on Route 112, the one that had been running on fumes, sold out of work gloves 3 weeks in a row. 6 months later, the distribution center opened. It was massive, clean, modern. The WCF logo, white and gold, stretched across the front wall, visible from the highway. 250 jobs. Real jobs. Full-time, benefits, starting wages that actually meant something. The single mom who'd been working 2 part-time jobs at gas stations across the county, she got hired as a shift supervisor, set schedule, health insurance for her kids for the first time in 3 years. The retired veteran who thought his working days were over? Fleet dispatcher. He showed up 15 minutes early every morning and told anyone who'd listen that this job gave him his purpose back. The high school senior who was about to drop out because college felt pointless in a town with no future? She got an internship in logistics coordination. She deferred college for a year, not because she gave up, but because she was already learning more than any classroom could teach her. 250 jobs in a town of 6,000. The unemployment rate didn't just drop, it collapsed. And then there was Brenda. Brenda's diner expanded into the empty lot next door. New kitchen, new tables, new sign, hand-painted, because Brenda refused to go digital. People eat food made by hands. They should see a sign made by hands. She hired 6 more staff. She catered lunch to the WCF distribution center 5 days a week, 300 meals a day. Her meatloaf recipe that used to feed a half-empty diner was now feeding an entire workforce. On weekends, she started a brunch. Word spread. People drove in from 2, 3 counties away. Behind the counter, she hung a framed photo. Theo and Garrett, shaking hands at the community center. She made every new hire look at it on their first day. You see that, kid? That's why we're here. Don't forget it. Nobody forgot. At the end of the school year, the first Theo Davis Community Scholarship was awarded. The recipient? A 16-year-old girl who spent every Saturday tutoring younger kids at the public library. No one asked her to. She just showed up, week after week. She was going to study nursing. Coach Reeves sat on the selection committee. The criteria had nothing to do with GPA, nothing to do with test scores. One question: who showed up for someone who needed them? The ceremony was small. School gymnasium, folding chairs. Garrett flew in for it, stood in the back row. Theo presented the award. His hands shook a little, but his voice didn't. The second year, there were 3 scholarships. By year 3, local businesses started contributing to the fund. The owner of the hardware store, the new manager at the distribution center. Even Brenda, who wrote a check every January and told Garrett, "Don't you dare thank me." A regional newspaper ran a feature. Then a national outlet picked it up. The headline read, "The Boy on the Bicycle, How a 13-Year-Old's Kindness Revived a Dying Town." And Theo? He entered the WCF Youth Engineering Apprenticeship. Weekends and summers at the WCF headquarters, shadowing real engineers, learning CAD software, touring distribution centers across the state. His composition notebook? Replaced with a professional drafting tablet, a gift from Garrett. But he kept the old notebook, on his desk at home. The handkerchief folded inside the front cover. At 14, he stood in a conference room full of adult engineers and presented a route optimization idea he'd been sketching for months. They listened. They asked questions. They implemented it. He attended the STEM summer camp, fully funded, youngest participant in the program. He won the final design challenge. Theo was still quiet, still polite, still folded his blanket with military corners every morning. But now, when he rode his bike down Route 112, he looked up at the WCF trucks, and he nodded. He knew those trucks now. And they knew him. Exactly 1 year after that night, Theo Davis got on his bicycle. But this time, he wasn't alone. September 14th, the anniversary. Theo had an idea. He didn't pitch it to anyone, didn't ask permission, just posted a flyer at Brenda's diner, one at the school and one at the community center. Anniversary ride, Route 112, Brenda's diner to the Chevron station, Saturday, 8 a.m. Bring your bike. He expected maybe 10 people. Over 100 showed up. Kids on bikes, parents on bikes, Brenda on a bike for the first time in 30 years, wobbling, laughing, refusing help. Coach Reeves on a mountain bike he borrowed from the school equipment room. Deputy Tillman on his motorcycle, riding alongside as escort, lights flashing. And Garrett. His cardiologist told him absolutely not. No bike. Not a chance. Garrett didn't argue. For once. Instead, he followed the ride in a WCF truck with Caroline, windows down, honking the horn every few minutes, Caroline waving from the passenger seat like she was in a parade. The weather was perfect. Clear sky, warm breeze, golden late summer light pouring through the pine trees along Route 112. The same road, the same 12 miles, but everything was different. A year ago, one kid rode this road alone, in the dark, in a storm, terrified. Today, 100 people rode it together, in the sun, laughing. They reached the spot, the exact spot where Theo found Garrett. Right shoulder, mile marker 6, just past the bend. There was something new there. A steel post. Simple, clean. A small plaque bolted to the front, funded by the town council. It read, "On this spot, a boy on a bicycle reminded us that the most powerful thing in the world is showing up for someone who needs you." Everyone stopped, bikes clicking to a halt. Silence. Theo stood in front of the plaque. Garrett stood next to him, leaning on his cane. Neither spoke. Then Garrett put his hand on Theo's shoulder. That same grip, one final time. Firm, steady. The grip that started in a ditch and ended right here. "Thank you, Theo. Every day. Thank you." Theo nodded. Didn't trust his voice. The ride home was slow. Easy. People talking, laughing, kids racing each other. Brenda complaining her seat was too hard. Tillman's radio crackling in the background. Theo pedaled ahead. New helmet, white with gold trim. Same duct tape handlebars. He refused to replace the bike. Nana said he was sentimental. Garrett said he was stubborn. He passed the WCF distribution center, lights glowing in the morning sun. He passed Brenda's, already setting up for the lunch rush. He turned onto Perrin Street. Nana was on the porch, 2 glasses of sweet tea, 2 folding chairs. He parked the bike, sat down. She handed him a glass. "Good ride?" "Good ride." They sat together. The freight trucks rumbled past in the distance, white and gold against a wide open sky. If this story moved you, even a little, I need you to do something. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who's having a hard day, someone who needs to remember that good people still exist. And if you're not subscribed yet, come join this family, because we don't just tell stories here. We tell the ones that matter, the ones that make you feel something real. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. Have you ever helped a stranger without thinking twice? Or has a stranger ever helped you when you needed it most? Tell me. I want to read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.
Do you know what I keep coming back to? Theo didn't know. He had no idea who that man was. He didn't see a billionaire in that ditch. He saw a human being who needed help. That's it. 13 years old, no light, no full 12 miles in a thunderstorm. For a complete stranger, and that's the part that gets me. We live in the world where people ask, what's in this for me, before they do anything. But Theo never asked that. He just stood up and that. Not a scholarship for a distribution center, not a strike. That's what changed everything. One kid who decided a stranger's life was worth his comfort. But here's the lesson I hope you carry with you. Garrett didn't have Theo because he feels sorry for him. He helped him because he saw who Theo already was. That composition, notebook full of drawings, those military corners on the blanket, the pennies saved in the envelope. Theo wasn't waiting to be rescued. He was already building his future with whatever he had. Garrett just opened the door wider. So let me ask you this. You don't have to ride 12 miles in a storm. But is there someone who just needs you to show up? Tell me in the comments. If the stories make you feel something real, share it. Subscribe if you haven't. We do this every week. And remember, you never know whose life you are holding in your hands show up anyway.